Welcome to chat for November 30th. We got a great show for you lined up today. Lots of technical topics. Actually, we'll be starting it off with talking about WharfKit by Greymass. We'll be talking about Pomelo updates. We've got Zach Gall right now in DCentral in Miami talking layer ones. We'll be talking about new ENF Twitter spaces, Decafe. We're also going to be talking about a new Antelope Coalition request for proposal regarding RAM limitation fixes and announcing the Trust EVM Hackathon Round 3. We got some nice special guests lined up for everyone this week, including Aaron Cox from Greymass, Nathan James, Head of Developer Relations for the ENF, and Yves Larose, founder and CEO of the EOS Network Foundation, and of course, all of you. So EOS is a layer one smart contract platform that is governed by its community. It's the only crypto network that has had a foundation emerge organically from within the community years after the launch of the network. Since the creation of the EOS Network Foundation 1 year ago, the new EOS has seen an incredible acceleration of progress and innovation. The EOS Network Foundation has built an excellent team that has been able to quickly establish essential frameworks that empower the EOS community to do its best work and live its best life. Through foundational initiatives like the Recognition Grants, the Blue Paper Research Series, the Pomelo crowdfunding platform, the Direct Investment Frameworks, and the ongoing EOS Roadshow, the community has been activated and energized to a level not seen since the launch of the network. Many of these initiatives are starting to blossom, such as the recent success of Recover Plus, the ongoing promotion surrounding Yield Plus that has led to a massive surge of TVL on EOS, and especially on DeFi Box, a leading EOS DeFi protocol, which has seen their new Vault product quickly attract over 4.4 million EOS. Other recently blossoming initiatives includes the ongoing season 4 of the Pomelo crowdfunding platform, as well as lots of great technical progress in many aspects, some of which we'll be talking about today on this show. EOS is in the midst of an epic narrative reversal, and the new EOS has the potential to become the greatest crypto comeback story of all time. My name is Stephane. I'm one of the co-founders of EOS Nation, currently a top-ranked block producer on EOS and other Antelope chains. I'm happy and honored to be your host for today. So thank you for everyone joining us in the Discord live chat. We got over 40 people already in here. That's great. Please feel free to jump on stage with me at any time. We love to hear your comments, thoughts, questions, and reactions to the news of the week. And shout out to everyone listening on other platforms such as YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Please join us on Discord at discord.gg/EOS-network. Today we're talking about EOS, but also the Antelope ecosystem. Antelope is the name for the community-owned blockchain software that powers a variety of highly performant blockchain networks, such as EOS, Telos, Wax, UX, and many others. All right, so before we get to the good stuff, I see you guys are already sharing lots of pics in the chat. Love to see it. If you do come on stage, we appreciate you sharing your name and team when you come on. It helps everyone understand a bit more context where these comments are coming from. And of course, we're doing our Pop Token giveaway every Fireside. So you can go to the Pop Bot chat in the new fun section here on the Discord server and register your EOS account to receive your Pop Token for today. And the Road to 10K promo is still going on. We're just around 6,400 members now on the server. When we reach 7,000, we'll be handing out EOS prizes, NFT prizes to everyone who's created a custom invite link, and shared it with their friends, and it's helped grow the server. All right, so let's get into it. We'll start off with a heavy hitter. I'd like to invite Aaron Cox of Greymass on stage to talk a bit about WharfKit.
Why, hello there.
Hey.
I don't know exactly where to dive into this. It's quite the big topic, but I guess a little bit of backstory is this is one of the projects that was proposed early in the year in the Wallet Plus Blue Paper that the ENF commissioned. The goal was to create a framework for web developers to be able to more easily create apps and to be able to do things that are not easy to do today with the current tooling we have. I guess some examples that you guys will probably recognize of stuff in that category would be things like IBC transactions, abstracting away the CPU, net, and RAM costs. If you're an Anchor user, you probably have seen us do that within Anchor, where it's like recovering resources, or we prompt a fee that says, oh, if you pay 0.0004 EOS or whatever, we'll cover the RAM costs and we'll pay for the CPU and the net of the transaction. And it just in general makes that user experience so much easier because you don't need to disconnect from what you were doing and go manage your account. You don't have to stop at the gas station in that regard. So that's kind of the goal of this project, and we started working on it in earnest probably in September, I want to say. Time's just been flying by, so my dates may be a little fuzzy. And just, I think it was last week or the week before, we announced kind of the name and the brand for this, and we're calling it Wharf. All of it's going to be found under WharfKit as a branding. So if you go to wharfkit.com or if you go to github.com/wharfkit, those are going to be where this project is going to live. The website right now, we already launched it. We want to try to do this kind of radically different than we've done a lot of our projects in the past. We launched the website immediately, and we are now publishing all of the calls that we do. They're scheduled to be weekly, but we've been doing bi-weekly right now just to kind of slowly start this process. Because we want developers in this community to engage, and we want, if you're interested in this topic, for you to be able to keep up on what's happening. And we're going to slowly evolve the website over time to right now, it's kind of a community site for developers to keep up on the videos, like I was mentioning. But it will turn into a site with guides, tutorials, videos, and documentation. It will be hopefully like the homepage of a developer that, if they're building some sort of Antelope-based web application, they can go here to get what they need. We're exclusively focusing for now on the client development, like what the user experience would be in the browser of you interacting with an Antelope web application. But hopefully, the 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 knowledge we're bringing to this framework and like the techniques will be able to be applicable to non-web things like mobile apps or video games or whatever other kind of application you could imagine that needs this type of deep integration. And maybe there'll even be some opportunities for smart contract development toolkits to leverage some of the tooling that Wharf will offer. So all in all, that's the kind of the high level overview of where we're going with this. We're excited about it. We're excited about the branding. It's got a pretty nerdy feel to it, which is cool. It's got a little bit of terminal. It looks like a W. It looks like a 3. It's kind of Web3. There's a lot of symbolism behind the direction we're going with the brand, which I could nerd out about.
Please
and
do.
yeah, we're making good progress. What was that?
I would love to hear more about the nerd branding rants about the logo.
So I guess the backstory on that is back in my Steam days, which was kind of the first blockchain that I really got into, like development wise. I was into crypto before Steam, but Steam is where my interests of web technologies and blockchain kind of collided, and I started working. And the first wallet I started working on was called Vessel, like a ship. And that kind of kicked off this nautical theme that I've been chasing ever since, because really crypto at this point, you can call it the Wild West, but you could also consider crypto to be kind of this vast ocean. It's dangerous. There's a lot of unknowns. You can traverse it. There are safe harbors. There's just a lot of symbolism between this nautical theme and crypto. So that's also where the name Anchor came from for the wallet, as well as Lighthouse and a number of other projects that we have kind of in the background that all have these kind of names. And is Wharf is where, if you were out to sea, when you wanted to come back to land, you would use a dock or a wharf to either unload people, goods, passengers, whatever. And with the Antelope brand being so land-based, this is now kind of a transitional point for the brand that we've been chasing to, in that turbulent sea to the land that this bigger brand now represents. There's a lot of when you think about a wharf, you think about stability. You think about the stability that the land provides out into the sea. Also, in that, like, businesses may have their own piers or wharfs or docks to encourage people to visit. That also kind of ties back into applications wanting to bring users in. It's that, facilitation of commerce that these types of objects in the real world actually provide to, whether it's a restaurant on a lake or something on a river or something on the coast of the ocean. There's a lot of that good symbolism that if you look deep enough into the branding, you'll be able to find. So we have a whole presentation. I don't think it's linked to from the website yet. Not sure if we have a link to it yet, honestly, but it's a big PDF that dives into a lot of this symbolism, a lot of the goals we had with the brand, and then how we took that kind of sort of real world object, being the wharf, and we made it a little bit more nerdy by using terminal colors like that green. It is old school computer terminal kind of color, with the layers and the shapes. The shapes are curved, gets away, but it almost still has an 8-bit feel. We our team spent a lot of time iterating on what this brand should look like to make sure that it resonated with developers and it would be something that is welcoming to them and something that would help them build their business, because ultimately that's the goal of Wharf. It's not a standalone thing in that, like, you as an everyday user will use, but it is going to be a component of somebody else who's building an application that hopefully, will be successful and we'll all be excited to use.
Awesome. I don't know if you noticed, I downloaded a wharf sound effect, played it a few times while you were talking, trying to
Did
help
you? I
with
couldn't
that
hear it.
branding. It's very subtle. It's very
That's
subtle. I
a
see. Yeah. I see Mara here in the chat sharing a wharf brand presentation
There
that
we
we can all
go.
watch. So that's great. Is Mara part of the Greymass team? I'm not sure
Yep.
if I've heard of
Yep.
Mara
Mara is
before.
on our team. I didn't think she was here in Discord with us, but she is, so that's awesome. And that video, Weekly Call 2, is the one where we presented the brand. I kind of dove into this topic for maybe 30 to 40 minutes, and then we fielded some questions. And the PDF that was linked is the version 1 that we have shared in the Wharf Telegram channel, which I think it is t.me/WharfKit. Yeah, WharfKit. We're using WharfKit everywhere, even though we might just say Wharf.
There you go. Yeah, I shared a bunch of links as well to the Twitter, to your Medium article, to the
And the
website.
ability to just meme off of Star Wars for this is awesome. You'll notice in some of the branding stuff, like, we used words like turbo lift or replicator or some other just generic Star Wars worlds as
You
lorem
mean Star
ipsum.
Trek, right? You mean
Yeah,
Star
Star
Trek?
Trek.
Uh
Sorry. There
oh.
was a
Uh
Star
oh.
Wars meme as well, and I think that's what I was staring at with the dog.
Foreigner got you. Foreigner
Yeah.
got you good on that one.
Yeah, I did.
You dropped a nice little subtle flex there.
Yeah?
Yeah, when you said that you started in crypto before Steam, I'm just wondering, when did you start getting into crypto?
2013 maybe.
Very nice.
Somewhere around there. It was back. It might be before that too. I don't know the exact time. I'd have to go look. But it was when Bitcoin was still mineable on CPUs. I tried getting it set up. I think I may have failed. I may have gotten it working. I don't know. But yeah, I was starting to really look at it as like, oh, what is this cool new distributed technology? And then I got into things like Burst Coin, which was disk space utilization, and obviously some of those earlier ones like Litecoin, and like just starting to explore those. But really, my interest wasn't super peaked until Steam, because my career before crypto was all content and publishing systems, mainly focused in the video game industry. So it was all about sharing text. It wasn't like in the financial side of things. And then when Steam was like, "Hey, we're going to put content on the blockchain," that's where I was like, "Oh, I know this world.
Very cool, very cool. Love hearing about your background. It's gotten me curious, actually. Let's see in the chat what year all of you got into crypto or purchased your first crypto. Myself was January 3rd, 2017. Purchased my first Bitcoin at 1,000 US dollars. I heard about Bitcoin when it was launched back on the Slashdot forums. I didn't understand the vast majority of the posts on there. It was way too technical, but I was still curious. Heard about this decentralized digital currency. I was like, oh man, for sure that's going to be a thing in the future. How much do these cost? Oh, 2 pennies per Bitcoin. Oh yeah, I should buy $100 of this stuff. Looked around for a few minutes on the web, could not find out how to buy. Forgot about it. Heard about it again. 25 cents. Oh no, I missed the boat. $1. Oh no, I missed the boat. $10. Oh no. Anyways, finally I decided to stop missing boats when it hit $1,000 in 2017. Here, okay, cool. We got lots of answers. We got Glue Dog claiming 2013. We got Andrew Dogecoin in 2016. Nice intro. John Paul, 2012. Yves Larose coming in with the 2010. Mark Stair, 2017. Foreigner, 2017. A few 2017s as well. Mara, summer 2016. Very nice. Rob coming in with the 2012 in college. Awesome. Denis, 2017. That's actually, yeah, late 2017. I got Denis to come over to my place actually in December. Finally
like
got
the
him.
the worst time to be buying crypto.
Pretty much. Pretty much. But you did all right for yourself anyways. CAC 2011. Winnie 2014. Good stuff, guys. Martin 2013. Awesome. Yevin sold all his Bitcoin at 600. Game over, sir. Thanks for playing. All right. Any questions from the crowd about for Aaron or about WharfKit by Greymass? To me, it sounds all wonderful, but as a non-developer, I think my appreciation of it may be limited. So yeah, I'd love to hear.
I have some questions, and it's
go.
for those, I guess, that have not been following the EOS main chat because this came up over the last week or so. Aaron, can you re-explain, because you already did, but how, because we're talking about resource management, how EOS effectively right now, I don't recall where the discussion started, but how it's still very difficult to interact with EOS, and how unless you're using Anchor, a lot of what you guys have built in terms of for fuel, etc., is still very difficult for people. But how Wharf will essentially be able to bring about that functionality to others that aren't necessarily leveraging Anchor, for example. Or can you touch upon that?
Yeah, absolutely. In that EOS main Telegram channel, it comes up a lot. That's like EOS is still hard to use, and then people debate about the merits of power up and staking and things like that. And really, like none of those systems are super great from a user perspective because you need to understand what CPU is and what net is and what RAM is. And while we have improved the system in the back end, like we moved from staking to Rex to power up, those all had that kind of underlying concept that you still needed to know what these three things were. You needed like what's a millisecond of CPU, and then how many milliseconds of CPU does it take to perform a transaction or whatever. That's kind of been the fundamental thing that we've never pushed over the finish line to actually address from the user experience. We, on the Anchor side, we started exploring this a couple years ago with Fuel. I think Fuel launched in late 2019 or something. And Fuel only has ever worked in our SDKs. You know, you're using the Anchor SDKs to interact with the Anchor wallet. And the reason that we were able to even do this is because we started writing our own SDKs. We kind of ditched everything that had existed up until that point that everyone else was using. And we kind of fundamentally broke all of those ideas apart and then built what we have called EOSIO Core over the following like 2 years or something like that. This core is going to be the kind of the bedrock of Wharf. Like all of its components will be exposed through Wharf. You probably won't need to know what they are, but As a developer, that sort of stuff, having access to that is super important. So now what we are doing with Wharf is we're taking everything that we've learned to do with Core, and we are bringing that into Wharf, so that way you don't need Anchor to use the techniques that we are using right now. It's kind of impossible to do in UAL. If you're a developer in the space, you've probably been exposed to UAL. It's the framework that Block One did probably in 2019, 2020 to let you log into websites with any wallet, like the token pockets, the scatters, the anchors, that sort of thing. But it's really hard to cover things like resources with that. So we're taking everything we learned over the course of that, like the last 3 years or so, of taking these approaches and making it so that in Wharf, there is actually a plugin system where you can drop in a resource provider plugin like Fuel or anything else that a developer wants to create. And it will just make your application work with those approaches, those kind of protocols, with any wallet without the requirement of something like Anchor. So I guess
Why
at a high
that's
level,
interesting, I think, is because a lot of the debate is people say EOS is still very difficult to use. And then the answer is always, no, it's not. Just use Anchor.
yeah,
Because they've made it easy. And then people say, but I don't want to use this wallet. I want to use a different wallet, or I want to use a different way to access. And up until now, it's been impossible. And I guess that's what's gotten me excited. But this specific part of Wharf is the different components, as you mentioned, the different building blocks are now going to be made available, which then further decentralizes the functionality of being able to access that function without necessarily needing to go to a particular vendor, so to speak.
yeah.
And so I'm hoping that what we see from this is that there's no longer the, hey, it's really hard to use, because it will not be the case. Because for a lot of people, it is not hard to use right now. The
Yeah.
resources have been abstracted away from many people now for more than a year.
And the only problem is that it like centralizes it into depending on one application like Anchor.
Correct.
Or like
Correct.
I think Token Pocket also does resource management just differently. But you know, it creates vendor lock-in, and that is not good for an open ecosystem like this. You as a user should have a choice, and where you manage your private keys, where you manage your accounts, all of that kind of thing. Because being super dependent on one product is just like that is a point of failure for the ecosystem. And a decentralized ecosystem shouldn't have a singular point of failure that, if goes down, severely degrades the user experience. So, as much as like I would love for a lot of people to use Anchor, there need to be alternatives, and those alternatives need to be successful, and they need those same features. They just unless they invest just as much time as we did building those features, they can't have them right now until the building blocks of something like Wharf exist.
Yeah. Hey, this is Eric. Can I hop in?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, and I think something you said that I really like about it is it's the framework isn't opinionated. Like you said, you get your choices of how to manage the different things you want, and you can build opinionated applications on top of that. But like, just take private key management. You could store that, you know, in a vault for some provider service. You could store it on your own hardware wallet. You know, you can store it lots of different places. And having a framework that works for that, I think that's great. It's a lot easier to use. That's just one example.
Absolutely. And we're still really early on, and I think resource management is probably the easiest example for everyone here who's used the EOS or any Antelope network to understand. But over the course of the next year or more, IBC is going to become the same thing, where we're going to have IBC right away. It's going to be kind of hard to use, and we need the platform to exist. Hopefully, Wharf will accomplish this to make that easy for us to be able to transfer, I don't know, tokens from one network to the other, or NFTs, or whatever other magical powers that IBC is going to unlock to allow these kinds of networks to collaborate.
Yeah, can I jump in for 2 seconds?
Absolutely.
Joe speaking of the main Telegram chat, I was part of that. I forget who started it, but it did pique my interest. And then if anyone caught just today, I'm using a chain that came out a year and a half after EOS launched, and it was an abysmal experience. Header hash graph. Not to just be like header is the problem. There's so many chains operate fundamentally exactly like Hedera. So it just happened to be Hashgraph that I was on today. And what a slap in the face to have been using EOS, and even with power up in the state it's in, thanks to Anchor, as you guys were talking about, I really haven't been bothered by the concept of resources because I don't do a lot of complex things on chain right now. You know, I stake, I unstake, I transfer, send receives. And I look at different DeFi involvement, but I never get to a situation where I'm trapped in EOS, where that happened to me this morning on Hashgraph. And I have a lot of Hashgraph. It's not like I'm broken Hashgraph. And I'm just a simple transfer today. Despite having a lot of Hashgraph, I couldn't move it. It's just stuck. It's trapped in prison basically, in a popular staking contract. And all that's necessary to transfer is like 3.9 H bar. Okay, it's less than 20 cents. Okay, it doesn't sound like a big problem, but that's 300% increase in the transaction fees from when I first staked it in May. Okay, that's how do I leave change that looks in the future for a 300% transaction cost increase? I didn't expect that. I had, I put cushion in there, but not 300% cushion for a wild transaction increase. So anyways, I left my process now. I'm stuck for 6 days because I have to go back into the legacy finance system and do ACH, wait for things to settle, wait for the exchange to allow me to withdraw my new H bar, and then inject that into the network so I can pay that 20-cent transaction cost. It's insanity. Like, how is that the future of finance?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a common trend for a lot of chains to they focus on the back end and the user experience. Like the developers don't use their own product as much as they probably should. The user experience kind of suffers in that regard. I've used Hedera as well, and it feels like one of those networks. And while the back end looks like it has some promising aspects to it, it's just this lack of attention towards the front, the user experience, how these things can be done, and investing the appropriate amount of resources to make that happen. So it's awesome to see that we're getting the opportunity to do that in the Antelope space now, after a couple years of not having much progress on that front. But that's how we reach adoption, is making the user experience good. Like, it doesn't matter necessarily how fast the chain goes, to a certain degree, it does matter, but it's about whether or not you're gonna get stuck, or whether or not it's confusing, or how it's presented to you as a user, and how you get onto the network itself. There's a few comments in chat about account creation, and that still is a significant hurdle for a lot of these chains, including uh, EOS. We have some somewhat easy to use processes, but there's a lot of room for growth.
Hey, Daniel here. One thing I'll add is creating good user experiences is really hard. Like, a lot of dev work goes into creating a good user experience, which is a huge part of why I'm so excited about these SDKs, is because you guys are doing a lot of this hard work that now the developers building their app aren't going to have to think about anymore. I've shared this example before when we were building Pomelo, leading up to the first season. The number of hours we spent just to make the kind of that login flow, linking your wallet flow work relatively nice for the users, and it's still a long way to go. It was a lot of work. If we had SDKs that actually already solved all of that, we would have spent that time on building features for Pomelo instead. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the ecosystem develops more rapidly, just because it's going to be so much easier for apps to build great user experiences.
Super excited for that as well. I can definitely say that. And I think along that regard, I think one of the big things, kind of going back to resources, is the way that this is all going to be built is that it's going to be flexible enough to handle any sort of resource model. Like using Pomelo as an example, if Pomelo wants to use fuel to pay for resources, cool, plug in for that. If Pomelo wants to create its own resource system, instead of like reinventing your front end to work with that, we'll just develop a small modular plugin to handle that part of the process. And going even future facing or like forward looking, if there's a new resource model that gets deployed onto the network, let's say like contract pays becomes available, we figure out a way to solve that problem and it exists. That is yet another just plugin that you're going to be able to drop into your front end, and all of a sudden contract pays works. It is now a part of your platform without you having to invent that wheel to let the contract pay for the transactions themselves. It's this new approach to how we form transactions within Wharf's session kit that will allow you to just hook into these various points during that process and kind of make it do whatever you need it to do. It's those building blocks. It is, we're giving you the Legos to be able to do this kind of thing if you want them. And if you just want to focus on your app, if you just want to build Pomelo and use what exists, cool, that should work too. And it should dramatically improve the user experience over what you would have available to you today, being the UAL or integrating Anchor and all the other wallets directly. It's always so hard to answer people in like Telegram when they're like, hey, I want to build this cool new app. How do I do X? And the answer is, there's a lot of work. You're going to have to dig in and, add the 4 wheels to your car before it actually moves down the road.
Another thing for Aaron, I think you took a different approach with how you would build Wharf. Is instead of building all the code to build Wharf, you built how you would use Wharf before building the code. Is that sort of, maybe you can kind of pass through the logic or the mindset of how you end up even building it without actually building it, but how it would work as a developer.
Yeah. That's part of, I think it's going to be an initiative probably in the next coming weeks, if not maybe early next year. But we're hitting this problem from both sides. We've kind of, like I talked about earlier with EOSIO Core, we've been building kind of the foundation for years. We kind of know how we're building from the bottom up. And when we started Wharf, we also started a GitHub repository we're calling Golf, quote unquote, like the game of golf, on GitHub, where it is a place where we're building from the top down. We're writing pseudocode. We're trying to get other people involved in writing pseudocode about like, how would you actually want to use EOS, for example, in your application? Like, let's make up some code. It doesn't have to function, but let's figure out what the most simple approach to solving that problem would be, and then we can work from the top down. At the same time, we're working from the bottom up and meet somewhere in the middle to come up with that like sweet spot of what the developer experience will be while using Wharf. So we still need to write some blog posts and like explain that. We'll give a better explanation of like why we're calling it golf right now. The TLDR on that is that we're trying to, golf is a game where you want to use the least amount of swings possible to get to the hole. This is where we want to use the least amount of code to solve a problem.
Yeah, it's a great approach. Definitely writing the pseudocode first, or at least in conjunction with the core bottom level code, will definitely help the user experience, because then you're really looking at how would a developer write this, and then you have to make that happen, whether it's close or sort of close. But I think it's definitely the right approach. And playing golf, that's how I learned regex. regular
Yeah.
expression, is regex golf. So if anybody wants to play golf, regex golf is a good one too. Yeah, great.
Yep. And if you go looking up code golf, you're going to find something a little bit different. There is a whole league of code golf out there, which their goal is to make it use as few characters as possible.
Yeah.
And that is a whole different thing where you end up with just completely unreadable code, and it gets into like compilation of code and minification and just some other nerdy topics. But we're really kind of doing a UX or a developer experience code golf in this sense. Yeah, expect some updates on that, in the coming month or so, I would say. And if you want to find it now, you can go look at the GitHub on the Greymass organization. There's a repository called Golf. And in the pull requests and in the issues is where that's kind of happening.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Aaron, and thanks, Denis, Yves, Joe Louis, everyone else who jumped in there for some questions and some more color commentary. It's been great. Anyone else have some questions on this topic before we move on? Gonna give you guys just a few more moments.
I will, to kind of add one thing, I think the universe is trying to tell us something here. I've had probably like 4 or 5 people this week reach out about automatic signing of transactions. Like you are playing a game, and whenever you move your character, you need to perform a transaction that says, move me to this position or whatever. It's kind of annoying to have to sign and like pop over to Anchor or whatever wallet you're using to approve a transaction for every time that happens. Wharf is a building block towards reaching a system that will make that much better for those kinds of games. That was another proposal in the Wallet Plus Blue paper called Request for Permission that we're super excited about. And how that plays with Wharf is that we're actually going to be able to build like a miniature wallet into Wharf that could have a private key with very limited permissions, so that way it's not dangerous. So that way when you're playing a game and you click, I want to move, it happens in your browser without you having to interact with your wallet. It is very similar to the automatic signing that I think people are used to using other wallets, but you actually still have to have the wallet open in those existing automatic signing type scenarios. With Wharf and the direction this will go, this is kind of outside of the scope of the initial development, but with a plugin for Wharf that helps with this, you won't even need your wallet open. You could authorize the browser, for example, to be able to play the game. So that way you can do those actions and perform those things without Anchor being open, without approving any transactions like that. And then if you ever wanted to log out, you could obviously log out on the website, but you could then also go into your wallet and deauthorize that other, that browser, for example, so that it was no longer able to perform those transactions. So that's a very, very forward-looking example of something else we're going to be able to do. But another way that this is going to be able to create a really good user experience. If you're using a social media app, or you're playing a game, or you're doing something that doesn't have much financial impact or wouldn't impact your like the value of your account should something go wrong in your browser, those are use cases that we're going to be able to meet with plugins for Wharf, and we're super excited about that.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Aaron.
No
Okay,
problem.
we're gonna go from one heavy hitter in the EOS community to another. Is Nathan James available to talk to us about some new ENF Twitter Spaces that have been going on?
Yeah, I don't know if I am actually going to be the one talking about this. Let's see. We have a new developer advocate. His name is Jonaed, and he's actually here. He's possibly here. Let's see.
I'm here.
You need to turn your mic up a little bit, though.
All right, hold on. I am really here with my mic turned up now.
Fantastic.
Sounds good. Welcome to the Fireside.
No, glad to be on. So yeah, Nathan and I have been doing some Twitter Spaces, and the goal is to just really have a more inclusive community, and have like regular Twitter Spaces that aren't just, hey, crypto's going up or NFTs are going up, where we can have actual discussion around community, around development, getting new people into the space, getting experts to share their experiences. And we've had decent turnout. We've done 2 so far. We're doing it every Tuesday at 4 p.m. EST, and we're going to settle on another time to be more inclusive to other time zones.
Awesome. What were the topics so far on these first 2 Twitter Spaces?
So the one yesterday was actually on breaking into blockchain. So what different careers, because people often think that the only jobs in blockchain have to do with development. But we went into just the different jobs that people had, because even within the ENF, we have people who are project managers, people who are technical writers, people in marketing, and all that. So, and people shared their journeys that were, the beauty of crypto and blockchain is that a lot of the journeys are very, very non-traditional. So it's interesting, and it really gives hope to people who have non-traditional backgrounds. I think someone came yesterday who was dyslexic, had to drop out of school and all that, but he had a home in the crypto community. So that was really nice. And let me actually have to look back at what was the first topic, Nathan?
It was the FTX wave.
Yeah, so we did one on the future, like what happens after FTX. And, that one we really kept it neutral, but we kept on, we said, hey, crypto always has these big events, and this is just a part of a growing space. And then other spaces have had events like this, and they're still fine, right? Like, you've had scandals in finance, you've had scandals in other industries, but it's not like they go down. Obviously, it's some negative press, but it does cause more people to come out, and it causes people to look deeper into things.
And Decafe is part of a larger initiative. We're actually going to be expanding this into other media types. So this is something that's going to be also podcasts eventually. It's going to be videos very soon. It's going to be interviews with a bunch of people inside the community, outside the community, inside of Web3, and then also outside of Web3. We have been getting to know a lot of Web2 developers on Twitter. It's part of a larger group that we're part of, and we're trying to bridge the gap between those two. So not only bringing in other Web3 developers from other ecosystems, but also people who can make their first home EOS, which I think is a very powerful thing for somebody, because your first home inside of anything, whether it's a framework for development or whether it's just a network, becomes very emotionally attaching. So we really want to bring this larger. There's also going to be a content creators course, which kind of leads into getting people into these spaces and into these initiatives. If you look here on Discord, we've actually created a new category called creators, and this will make sense hopefully very, very soon for the rest of you. And it's going to provide a home for people to really start working together as a group to evangelize the network, raise themselves up within the network and within the larger Web3 ecosystems.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that that recent topic about different careers within blockchain and the path that people took to get there. So I'm curious if you guys in the chat want to drop your path in here. I'd love to learn more about how each of you kind of got to crypto and what jobs you guys were doing before, or if you want to jump on and share a little recap of your journey, would love to hear it. Myself, I was working for the federal government in Canada. After that, played poker for a little bit, and then got into crypto. So definitely non-traditional path. And again, I'm not a developer, and I was still able to find my place in crypto. So there's definitely lots of room for non-developers in crypto, and That's what makes it so great, and also the variety of skills and past experiences that people can bring to the space. Very exciting to me.
Yeah, can I share my path?
For sure.
Yeah, so the funny thing is, I did a lot of job applications, I did a lot of networking, a lot of Twitter spaces, and I got my job off a tweet. And Nathan was the one who hired me. So uh, I was building, I was really active on Twitter. I was spending like 20, 30 plus hours a week just commenting in Twitter spaces, networking, and just doing my best to just add value and growing the account. And then, when you're on Twitter and you're on Twitter spaces, you always intersect with people in blockchain. So I was in a lot of spaces, and my background is I'm a professional resume writer, and I made the top 200 creators on LinkedIn. So I was in on Twitter spaces, I was the LinkedIn and resume guy. So I always got invited to spaces, and then I was looking for a job, and I made a tweet saying, "Twitter, I need your help." A lot of people retweeted that, and Nathan saw it, and we had a conversation, and now I'm here.
Hold up. So your job was how to make a resume, and you got your job without making a resume? Did I understand that right?
Yeah. Funny enough, it's funny. It's I've worked with over 400 people on their resumes. I've gotten interviews through my resume.
Hold on. You are so underselling yourself. This is a person who has hours and hours and hours of interviews with people, right? Somebody who's built an audience from 0 to, what was it, like 40,000 on
It's
LinkedIn?
like 38,000.
Right. It's not just as small as you're making it seem. Don't
I
undersell
agree with
yourself.
Nathan. I agree with Nathan.
Okay, I'll tell you. So I found something called nodegree.com where I
There
help
we
people
go.
without college degrees find jobs, and because of that, I host something called the No Degree Podcast, where I interview people without college degrees and have them share their stories. And if anybody wants to share their stories and they don't have a college degree, would love to share that. So that's one of the reasons I spent a lot of time growing on LinkedIn, and because that's where a lot of people in the career space are. But one of the issues with LinkedIn is I've gotten over 30 million views on my content, and I've grown to like 38,000 followers, but I've never gotten press off of LinkedIn. So a year ago, I started being active on Twitter because that's where the journalists hang out. And then that's what started I replicated my efforts on LinkedIn to Twitter. And I'm really big on community building. So yeah, so that's the shortcut, the short story.
Hey, sign me up for the no degree career stories. I'd be down to join your podcast.
Yeah, same here.
I think that's what's really lovely about this. I don't have a degree, right? I've been a developer for an extremely long time, but I don't have a degree. And I think there's a lot of people inside of the crypto space and inside of blockchain in general who really embrace that kind of open source contribution behavior. And it's not only lovely to see, but I think that it creates a lot of camaraderie between people when they say, hey, it doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter where you come from. It only matters what you're doing right now here for the ecosystem that cares about you and will evangelize the hell out of you every moment of your journey.
Andrew shared in the tech chat in our chat here that he's not a developer and he got his crypto job thanks to an EOS Fireside chat. That's great. Andrew works with us at EOS Nation, doing lots of great stuff. Thanks for sharing.
I can share a little bit of that story if you'd like.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, so I've been in EOS since launch, and so I was always pretty active on the EOS subreddit, and I was sort of like helping people. Actually, the specific thing is with the registration and then post registration. EOS Authority had their whole kind of guide to help with that, and so I was sort of helping people around, and then some random person contacted me on Reddit and asked if I could do crypto writing for them. And so I did that for a little while, but it wasn't paying enough, so I was still doing my other job as a welder. And then as Stephane, you just mentioned, I went to one of the EOS Fireside chats, and EOS Nation said that they were looking for crypto writers. I was like, what do you know? I have done that before. So I just I sort of shot in the dark, just tried it out. The nice thing about trying to be a writer is that when you do submit your resume, you want to have a cover letter, which I was able to use to sort of demonstrate that I could write. And then, yeah, as I guess EOS Nation was nice enough to kind of give me a chance, and yeah, I guess the rest is history, I suppose, but very recent history.
And again,
but yeah.
another person selling on the social, you've moved beyond writing at this point. I don't know if you want to
That's
share
true.
any of that.
I'm doing product ownership stuff now, which is part of the agile Scrum kind of way of product development. And it's still, I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of expand my horizons. Again, not something that I've done that much in the past, but there is a need. So I think that is, as people were talking about before, one of the key interesting parts of the blockchain space is that there's a lot of people who might not. I mean, it's such a new space anyway. Like, nobody has degrees in blockchain engineering, or very few, probably. There are not very many degrees out there for blockchain engineering. So it's sort of it's all about how well you can learn and how well you can execute and that kind of thing. And I'm hoping that I will be able to prove that out with my new role. But at the very least, I can still write words. So that's fun.
Is it still too early to drop a bit of alpha on the product that you're currently working on?
I could mention it. We're working on something that we're calling Spyglass right now, which is essentially a way to look at transaction failures, a way to help people diagnose problems with either their transactions or their users' transactions, or if there are node operator problems with their nodes, those sorts of things, with the eventual kind of goal of sort of providing all of that information to core developers so that they can help implement a long-term fix for these issues. And I'm learning a lot about the software development process, and I find that super interesting for me because I've always sort of been sitting in the outside, and so it's cool seeing it in sort of take form. That said, because I don't feel that confident giving a release date or anything like that, because I would probably be forced to eat my words, and I don't know how well those keep after a few months.
Can we get a confirmation that we'll learn more maybe in Q1 of next year?
Yes. I think that our timeline is at the very least sort of going towards that direction. We're hoping to have something to release or at least share by the new year.
All right, awesome, and yeah, you've been doing great work. I'm working a bit with you as well on some things, and yeah, it's been a pleasure. So, love hiring people from the EOS community. Of course, that's what we try to do as much as possible.
Yeah, proud to be here. Thanks.
And I remember that Fireside chat. That was the 8-hour one, and Andrew stayed from 8 hours.
Hired.
It was Harry. You're hired.
That was actually that was the one day that my boss at my welding job was not there, so I was able to listen for all 7 hours and ask questions and stuff like that. So
it was crazy.
Some sort of serendipity.
Yeah. You're the last man standing.
That's great. I didn't know that.
Patrick was there as well, and I was there a little bit. I was walking on the street, and it was like 8 o'clock at night. We're like, wow, they're still talking. Wow. So yeah, that was the longest Fireside chat that Andrew was on it for the whole time. Very impressive.
It does help being on the West Coast. It was only like 4 p.m. by the time it was done.
It was work hours. Yeah.
Would love to hear some more career paths that led people to this chat. Maybe I'm going to call out Winnie, which we've heard a bit from in the last few weeks. Would you like to share a bit more about your career path?
Oh yeah, totally. So I went to school. I got the degrees. I didn't want to get them, but my parents were not going to let me have it any other way. So I went to school for accounting and then for economics. But I actually got pissed off when I was studying economic policies and whatnot, right? So then around 2014, my ex-boyfriend, praise be to God that I met him, he introduced me to Bitcoin. We broke up soon after that. But then I was really interested in the economics and just like, well, the tokenomics behind Bitcoin. So I got into Bitcoin like that. But before that, I was working for marketing firms here in Ottawa, doing marketing for a lot of the engineering and architectural firms here. So I got into Bitcoin. I started trading Bitcoin while still working in marketing. And then Ethereum popped up and all these layer twos were being built on Ethereum in these communities. Got hired off of Telegram. So that was my entry point into crypto, was just participating as a community member. And then one of like the people in leadership liked my contributions and they offered me a position. And then I became a community manager. And then before I knew it, I was like chief marketing officer. And then I've gone into different roles. I've worked in communications. I've worked in business development. At the EOS Network Foundation, I'm working in marketing. So yeah, I kind of started with like, I went to school. I hated school. I took long to finish school because of how much I hated school and just like studying all the economic policies and just how the government prints money. It pissed me off. So yeah, I've worked in blockchain since 2016 and I've never looked back and I hope to never look back because yeah, I love this space.
Yeah, I went to University in Ottawa as well, and I hated it too. Awesome.
Oh, cool. Where did you go? Maybe we're friends or we might be rivals.
I grew up in Ottawa. I went to Ottawa U
Okay,
for a
cool.
few years.
I went to Ottawa U too for accounting, and then I did Carleton for economics. So
Right
we're
on,
still
yeah.
friends.
You both went to Ottawa U and hated school? Maybe it's just Ottawa
Yeah.
U.
No. It's just school.
Yeah, I was studying business administration, but kind of got disillusioned with the whole growth at all costs mentality and the types of peers I was hanging around. I was like, I don't want to compete on
Yeah.
this in these types of situations with these types of people. It's just not my
Yeah.
thing. So then I fucked off and played poker for a bit, snowboarded. That was great. And then, yeah, found crypto and then just went all in on crypto. It's been great. Well, thanks for sharing, Winnie. That was awesome to hear from you and learn more. All right. Anyone else? Anyone else want to jump in here, share some personal stories, ask some questions, anything like that? Give you guys a few moments, and then we'll move on to some more topics, maybe.
So I got my start in the crypto community by hosting crypto meetups. So my journey goes back. My background is in journalism. I went to school for journalism. Worked in that industry very briefly before I also got disillusioned by the state of that industry and how it was not what I had signed up for. Left, just needed to make some money. Got a job as a customer service agent in a call center. Worked my way up. This was at a bank. Worked my way up. Did some sales. Started doing operations. Got into the product side of things. Was working in their digital messaging team. Discovered Bitcoin. I was, always like Winnie, upset at the printing of money going on and things like that. And came across Bitcoin. Someone on a Facebook friend of mine who I had met backpacking years prior was posting about Bitcoin on Facebook and caught my attention. He was also a very early BitShares, Steemit, and then EOS fan, and he sold me on EOS following him, and that's when I discovered Steemit and started playing with it myself, and was like, wow, this is actually a usable blockchain that regular people can get some value out of. And EOS was coming, and I was excited about it, and I wanted to talk to others about it. And I was looking for meetups in Toronto, where I'm from, there were none. So I started hosting some myself, and that's how I met the kind of, I guess, got the attention of the others on the EOS Nation team, who they invited me to a Zoom call, asked me to join them on this adventure, and now here I am. And yeah, not a developer.
I have a question. Has anybody in blockchain got their jobs in a normal way?
Define normal.
Probably not.
I don't know. Every story is like this road, and it's very interesting. But has anyone just like applied and got a job?
Yeah, I mean, my path was pretty normal, but why do you want to hear about that? It's so boring. No fun.
I was walking past the Greymass brick and mortar, and they had a sign in the window, and so. No, I promise, not really.
I don't know that I do my path normal, but I'm happy to share it.
Yeah, go for it.
So this is Zach, and I started in crypto in 2013 with Bitcoin, participating in what we'll call libertarian markets, and that kind of went on for a couple of years, and then I genuinely saw the value in the technology beyond that, for humanity as a whole. And but I really just kept trading for a couple of years, and I met my best friend, and we were trading together, and it wasn't really until maybe 2015 or 2016 that I started to get into the actual technology of it. So I was going to school for computer engineering with a minor in physics and computer science. And to the comment about degrees, I actually did complete my degree program, but I ran out of money the last year, and I couldn't afford to finish. So my school, for whatever reason, they let you pay a semester late. So I just didn't pay them for their last semester, and I still owe them money. So I earned the degree, but I have to pay them $20,000 to get it, and they're not charging interest. So I'm just going to pay the student loans first. That's kind of where I am. If I ever needed it, I'd pay it off, and then hopefully they'd still give me the degree. But I don't know. It's just a weird situation to be in. Yay, America, I guess. But anyways, so I was at school studying computer engineering, computer science, and I finally got interested in this tech in 2016, and I was working in the automotive field. We were required to have a job in our degree field, so I was doing software. So I started just writing papers about it at school, and I started trading and sort of using my technology background to gain an edge trading altcoins and stuff, looking at the white papers and trying to see who's full of BS and who's not to the best of my ability. I did very well on Tron, so that tells you that that's not always how that went. Sometimes I did well on coins that didn't really have the best tech. But anyways, so I started, reading books and just listening to audiobooks on crypto. I listened to two that stick out to me are The Writings of Satoshi. I listened to that audiobook on the way back and forth to work. And another one was Mastering Blockchain by Imran Bashir. It's an older book. It came out before EOS was even a thing, but it explains crypto fundamentals very, very well. And I convinced some poor professor to let me do an independent study, so they had to read all my papers on blockchain. And I even convinced my employer to let me do a pilot project. So we had these hardware license dongles in our department. So you had to have this, it basically looks like a flash drive. You had to have this physical thing plugged into your computer to use our engineering software. And some of them were worth over $150,000. I mean, the value of some of these physical, little flash drive looking things was insane. And they were completely untracked. You could just kind of disappear with one if you wanted to. And so I convinced them to let me use a blockchain to track that. Someone else had already written a conventional application, or started writing a conventional application to track these things. So they had a GUI, but that's all they had. So I took their GUI and I put a blockchain behind it. I wrote it in C# and used, back then, Windows provided a peer-to-peer messaging service and a way to use the Active Directory account to sign things. So in an enterprise environment, you can trust Microsoft, which I wouldn't do, but they could. So I used Active Directory to sign the transactions, and It even had some degree of partition tolerance because we had test trips. So anyways, I wrote this blockchain. It was supposed to be like a side project, but it was basically all I did for a semester or two at work, and presented it to the executives and then kind of dipped out. So I don't know. I just like wrote papers and read books and did this little project. And I did some projects at school as well. I wrote a Bitcoin miner in Verilog, except our FPGAs were total garbage, so they couldn't actually mine any Bitcoin. All I could do was SHA-256. So, I mean, my point is I just like did things to try and like gain experience in the field. And then when I graduated, I just went online and looked for jobs, and I filtered out all the big cities because I was sick of being in traffic for an hour and a half a day. And I found two and applied to one and got a job. So I guess that's quote unquote normal, but that's how I got into the field. I definitely recommend those books for anyone who's interested. The Writings of Satoshi, very interesting, and Mastering Blockchain by Imran Bashir.
Not sure you mentioned it, but where are you working now?
Right now I'm at the EOS Network Foundation. So I guess that's the part of the story I left out. So I wanted to work on I wanted to work on the blockchain team, writing EOS itself, but I didn't really have that much experience with C++. And I just wanted to get my foot in the door. So I looked at all the positions they had open, and this was in 2019, so I applied to Block 1. And they had an opening on the automation team. So they accepted me as a junior engineer, and like that's not what I wanted to do. The plan was to leave that team as soon as possible and move to the blockchain team. But I don't know, that just ended up being what I did want to do. And I worked under very, very, very smart people who took me under their wing and taught me things, and I'm super grateful to them. Zane and Justin and everyone else on that team. Those names are probably meaningless, but just to shout them out. And that's still what I do. I still do automation and cloud infrastructure and stuff, which is super needed. So I just think it's kind of funny that I wanted to do like actual core blockchain development, but I ended up doing this other thing that I just didn't expect. So that's another thing for anyone who wants to get into the field. Like, just get your foot in the door and you might be surprised where you end up.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that story. That's great. Eric P., you jumped on the mic here for just a second. Would love to hear your story as well, even if it's conventional.
Sure. Yeah, man. I got a computer science degree and I went to work. I started working at Web 2 places. So this is around 2000. So CNET networks, and worked at an internet startup for amateur athletes. And then eventually I ended up at Microsoft, where I was doing commerce and media. So I was running all the engineering teams for MSN, their big content portal. And then I moved over to do consumer content, consumer commerce. So all the stuff you buy and sell. And so, yeah, I mean, I was interested in, always want to be more hands-on, like a smaller community, like to be more connected to people. I just felt that the jobs I had at bigger companies were so transactional, and I didn't really feel like I was adding value for all the work that I was putting in. So that's when I started looking around for opportunities and using my network and, asking, where I could help out. And that's how I ended up at the ENF Foundation. And now I do help out with, any tech they need on the corporate side. I help out with SDKs, worked on the Ledger hardware wallet, helping do some upgrades there. So that's, I would say, a pretty traditional path for a computer science person.
Yeah, no,
you can ask me anything. So welcome any questions you guys have.
That's great. Happy to have you on the Fireside.
I can explain my pre, and it involves Steph, but I'll do a little bit before Steph got me involved. So again, I'm on my whole life pretty much been doing open source development. I don't know why. I just like to push things out and work on the next thing, and also got involved a lot with open data as well. So a lot of the open data kind of really fascinated me as a weekend projects or kind of night projects. So I'd work full time and I would do open source software at night and open data on the weekends, essentially just working 7 days out of the week all the time. But my big career was with the military. So I worked for the military for about 11 years as a geospatial engineer, deployed overseas twice, went to Afghanistan, went to Nepal. Anyways, that's the military career part. I left that. I actually joined, I had an offer from Facebook. So Facebook wanted to hire me to work at their mapping department. So they do have a maps. They're kind of competing against Google Maps. They're doing a machine learning, big data, open data stuff. So I was kind of a good candidate. Where it got unconventional was I went to travel back to Canada on a vacation, went back to Facebook in the US, and then I got stopped at the border. And then my visa that Facebook had applied was the wrong visa for the application that I was doing. So they denied my visa, and I was essentially immediately jobless. I had no visa to work in the US. I had previously quit my previous job, and now I had no job, but I wanted to code all day, every day. So then I called Steph. I was like, hey, what is this Bitcoin thing? And then I got into like
So me and Denis knew each other from high school. We used to break dance together, and then we kind of stopped talking to each other for many, many years. I don't know, maybe 10 years or whatever. In 2017, I was just blasting my Facebook feed every day with Bitcoin stuff. And I didn't know that Denis was seeing these messages. So I was very excited when a smart developer friend of mine reached out and was like, hey, Steph, what's this Bitcoin stuff all about? I've got time now. I want to learn. That was very exciting for me.
Yeah, and then just essentially did that full time. Ever since I had essentially, my visa been revoked, I was like, all right, I'm just going, solo and gonna figure out some sort of thing in this crypto industry. And that was really like essentially the beginning of our journey with EOS Nation, or at least on my side. And every founder of EOS Nation had different starts, but that was mine. Visa revoked, and
so then mid-December, Denis comes over. We talk Bitcoin for a day. Early January, Denis like, hey, I'm doing a deep dive on a lot of cryptos. A few days later, he's like, this EOS network looks really, really promising. I think I'm going to go all in on that. And then a few days after that, he's like, hey, Steph, we should become a block producer on this network. I was like, what? That's way too crazy. There's going to be huge companies. There's no way just we can become a block producer. I didn't really believe. Yves was also in our chats. Yves instantly believed. He was like, oh, that sounds like a great challenge that I want to get involved with. And then we reached out to Daniel, who was basically the creator of the largest meetup group in Toronto. We reached out to Dave, who was the owner of the one of the large Facebook groups called EOS Nation. Vincent, our CFO, was in there as well. And we kind of all got together and were like, hey, let's make this happen. And it's been a hell of an adventure since. And looking forward to see where it goes in the next 5 years.
So a lot of definitely unconventional startups for sure, career journeys for sure.
All right, we're gonna move on to some other topics, but if you guys want to jump in at any time, feel free to do that. Yes, Yves did go to high school with me. Answering Trinbot here. All right, next topic I wanted to talk about was Zach Gall at DCentral Miami. So unfortunately, I looked for some video footage. I couldn't find it yet, so I don't think it's been published yet. I'm gonna share the tweet from the EOS Network Foundation announcing Zach talking on a panel. I can't wait to see Zach talking on that panel. Zach has he's such an expert on EOS, the whole history, everything that's going on right now. He's so passionate, loves talking about that stuff. So I'm sure he did a great job on that panel. So I'm looking really forward to seeing that. I'm going to share the DCentral conference Twitter account as well. If you guys want to click around, there's some great pictures there, kind of showing what the conference looks like. I don't know. Is anyone here in Miami right now, or were they in Miami to be able to attend this panel? I feel like it's doubtful, but I'm throwing it out there anyways. All right, no one's in Miami. All right, cool. I'm sure we'll get that content available to us soon enough. All right, next update is Pomelo updates. So, of course, season 4 is in full swing. Donations are open. Grant applications are open. You can still get in there if you've got a grant that you want to include. A grant, of course, has to be a public good built on the Antelope blockchain networks. And we're hosting pitch sessions every week in English, in Chinese, in Korean. Jen and Rios is hosting some on their YouTube channel. And yeah, we encourage you guys to sign up. If your grant has been approved, then you can sign up for the pitch session. So get in there, apply. There's still seats available for tomorrow's session. We've got a bunch of projects already signed up, but there's still room. We're maxing out at 15. Everyone has 5 minutes to pitch their grant tomorrow on the Pomelo Grants Twitter account, Twitter Spaces. And so I encourage you guys to get in there. If you did apply in the last few days for this pitch session, check your emails. I've sent out confirmation emails. You guys need to reply, give me some information. Helps us make sure that the show runs smoothly and we have all the info that we need. Another thing I wanted to talk about Pomelo is the new collections feature. So I'm pretty sure I mentioned this on previous Firesides, but collections are a new feature this season on Pomelo. Basically pretty obvious. It is what it sounds like. You can add a bunch of different grants into your personal collection, and other users can browse those collections to see which grants are recommended by various community members, in the community. And then you can easily add all of those grants to your cart and then donate to them. So Daniel was talking a bit earlier about building nice user experiences on EOS. I created my first collection this week. It's called Pitch Season 4, and it's going to include all of the grants that pitch on all of the pitch sessions. And so, and I was just very impressed and pleased at how smooth and easy the process was to create my collection, to add grants in there. So I'm going to share the collection right now. And this collection will grow over time. So as other people, pitch like tomorrow on the Rapid Fire on the Twitter Spaces, and then in Korea and China, I'll be adding all of those grants to this collection over time. So by the end of the season, we'll have a nice collection with all of the grants that took the time, to prepare their pitch, to show up on these shows, and to talk to the community directly. So I'm personally going to be donating to all of these grants that take the time to come on these pitch sessions. And actually, this season, my personal donation strategy is going to rely heavily on collections. So I'm probably going to go browse all the collections and then one by one kind of donate to all grants to all of the collections that I think I want to donate to. So that's kind of my plan for the season. And then, just some stats for season 4 so far on Pomelo. We've approved 113 grants so far. That's great. There's been more than 18,000 EOS donated. So that's among 1,600 contributions, a bit more than that, split across 280 contributors. And as we know from previous seasons, there's always a rush at first and then also a rush at the end. So like personally, I'm going to be donating more closer to the end of the season. I'm sure, and I know a lot of other people do that. So if you're thinking of putting up a collection, if there's grants that you want to help promote, make that collection, and then I'll probably throw some EOS, to the grants in those collections. And then final thing I want to announce, not necessarily a Pomelo thing, is the EOS Community Poker Tournament. So we had the first edition of this poker tournament a while back. It was great fun. We had about 40 people show up. And our team is putting up some prizes. So we're putting up some EOS. Now you can't keep that EOS. That EOS is actually can only be donated to Pomelo grants. So we're gonna, donate some EOS to some of the grants that the winners of this poker tournament choose. We're also, of course, giving away a bunch of great NFTs, some Pomelo astronauts, some party crackers, some pop tokens, all of the good stuff. So we hope you guys can join us. So that's Sunday, December 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern. So last time it was 2 p.m. Eastern, and we're trying to alternate the start times on these to better serve, as a large part of the community as possible. So get your poker skills ready, and hope to see a lot of you guys out there for the EOS Community Poker Tournament on Sunday, December 18th. Did Daniel want to come on and share some other things about Pomelo?
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me on. You did an awesome job covering it all. The stats, all that stuff, collections. I'm really excited to see, just like you mentioned, that your strategy of donations has evolved with the introduction of collections. I noticed the same myself. I'm really interested to see how the game sort of changes over time with this new element. And one of the goals with collections is to make it pretty open in terms of what these collections can be used for. I'm really still looking forward to. I still haven't seen a grant created. I'm hoping that we get one soon. Who's going to create a grant for? Let me be the ultimate curator of Pomelo grants. I'm going to, interview the grant donors and verify that they're doing what they're saying they're doing and that they are who they say they are. And I'm going to create a collection of my verified grants. That sounds like a great public good to me, and I think it would be awesome to see multiple people doing that, because the goal of Pomelo has always been to sort of give the power to the community to be able to decide what grants are deserving of receiving the matching pool. As a Pomelo team, we're trying to stay as neutral as possible. We review every grant and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Does it meet the criteria of a public good? After that point, we create the rules and we monitor that people are following the rules, but we're not judging grants on their quality. That's up to the community to decide. So we're, over time, we want to keep adding more and more tools to put in the hands of the community to be able to surface that signal of the crowd more and reduce the barrier for donors to, not have to do all that research by themselves. In season 3, we had, I think, 170 or so grants approved. So, putting yourself in the shoes of a donor who wants to, really have an influence on how this matching pool is distributed, reading through 170 grants, following up with all of the grant owners, all that's too much work for anyone. So with collections now, you can think of it like a proxy almost. Proxy your donations to somebody in the community that you trust. And again, our job as the Pomelo team is to help make that easy, help those trusted community members prove their reputation over time. So, we've been doing things like, displaying the stats of the collector at the top of those collections and their participation in Pomelo over time. And I see Glue Dog here in the chat sharing his achievements and his current donor ranking right now. I don't think I've seen anybody in the community with as many achievements as Glue Dog has. Currently in the #1 ranking position of donors. So if you look at Glue Dog's collection, you'll see his shiny badges up there and all of the contributions he's made over time. And maybe that's something that, maybe you've seen Glue Dog around and you trust his judgment, and rather than you digging through all the grants yourself, you can just donate to his collection. And through I mentioned I'm using the collections myself, playing with them, experiencing, finding opportunities to improve them. We've already, and shout out to Yarrow, he's our full stack dev on the Pomelo team, very receptive to feedback as I noticed something that's a bit painful in the UX. I open an issue for him in GitHub, and within a day it's implemented. So one of the things we implemented since launching season 4 and collections is ability within a collection to filter by things like filter out the grants I've already donated to. because one of the things I found myself doing is adding all the collections, all the grants in a collection to my cart, checking out, coming back a few days later. There's new collections. There's more grants added to the collections. Now I can filter out the ones I already donated to and add the rest to my cart and keep loading up on my donations that way. So yeah, really loving this to see all the activity. I'm really happy to see how many collections have been created. There's some really good quality ones here, and I think it's just going to get better and better every season.
Speaking of the infamous Glue Dog, are you going to join us on the pitch sessions? And for those of you who have more than one grant, you can apply for one slot per grant. So if you've got 2 grants, feel free to send 2 applications for the pitch session. We'll give you that 5-minute slot for each of your grants. John, did you want to jump in here? I know Boyd has a grant on Pomelo. Hoping you guys apply for the pitch session as well.
Yeah, we might. We just have to have someone on the team that's got some time to set aside for that.
For sure. So there's still there's a pitch session tomorrow. There's another one on the Thursday, 8th of December. And then the final one is going to be on December 13th. That's a Tuesday, because the final day for donations is December 14th, and that's a Wednesday. So of course we'll be reminding you guys of that every Fireside until we get there. And Glue Dog, don't worry about letting others have your slot. The way we designed it this year, we have 60 slots. I don't think we're gonna fill them out completely. So there's definitely plenty of room for anyone that has an approved grant that wants to get up there in front of the community and share what they're all about. Oh, I forgot to unmute myself again. Classic. It's got to happen at least once a show, right? So next topic, we're going to move on to Antelope Coalition request for proposal, talking about RAM limitation fixes. So this topic is definitely too technical for me to talk about. So I'd like to invite Yves, if he's still around, to maybe share more information about this request for proposal.
Sure. So it's actually really not technical. That's kind of the idea. And let me explain. So the idea is that the coalition acknowledges that currently there are RAM limitations on the way that basically Antelope is built and how it runs, and we see those limitations we see that Wax is hitting the wall, or is about to hit the wall of where those limitations lie. They're growing in RAM consumption quite significantly. And so part of the idea is this is somewhat of a different RFP. Think about it kind of like commissioning a blue paper through an RFP process to a certain extent, whereby we don't know what potential, so we have ideas of what potentially could be done in order to increase the RAM capacity, either on chain or ways to work around kind of the limitations that are set on hardware, and or how chains communicate with one another, or how an application could potentially be deployed to essentially scale the RAM components of it, or. There's tons of different things that we know are possible about going at this, but this particular RFP is not so much to say, here's what we want you to build. It's here are the challenges, and we are commissioning essentially research similarly to blue papers for somebody to come back and say, here's what we propose, here are the different options, here's what we've looked at, here's what works, here's what doesn't work, here's what others have done, here's how you'd be able to leverage Antelope in order to grow and to scale those basically that functionality or RAM in itself. And so it's really not that technical in terms of talking about the RFP itself. What will be proposed ideally will be very technical, but what will come out of the RFP will be more so options, recommendations. Then a subsequent RFP would likely be commissioned to then go and implement and to develop whatever solution is then chosen by the coalition to address those RAM limitations. So think of it like commissioning a blue paper, but specific to RAM limitation on as they pertain or as they exist on Antelope.
Sounds technical to me.
Sure. So here's the challenge. Here's the problem. People can figure out how to solve and propose ideas of how to solve those problems, essentially, that large problem, essentially. And for context, I don't recall what the exact number is, but the majority of the block producer nodes are running on hardware and on platforms that can accommodate up to 128 gigs of RAM in order to achieve the performance that they're achieving right now. So, of course, you could theoretically, or you can choose a different platform and have more RAM capacity, but then you don't have the performance that you have with the current setups that are existing. And so the idea is if that theoretical 128 gig right now is where the technical limitation is for block producer nodes, and it, just put in context as well. So the majority of account creation is basically held in RAM. So when you create account tables and such, and as you do more things with your accounts, that consumes more RAM. And Wax is growing of RAM consumption at a rate, I don't recall the exact number, but if I'm not mistaken, they're either just under 100 gigs or just above 100 gigs. So I don't know if somebody knows what the current number is, but it was growing at a rapid rate. And so at some point, what would happen is the block producers would not be able to, you'd hit that RAM bottleneck where you just can't create accounts anymore, or like there's no other RAM or no other RAM to be able to store tables in, essentially. And so how do we outgrow that? Or how do we scale that, basically, is the idea, without necessarily having to switch to different architecture, which would then allow for more RAM but drop the performance, because we know that performance drop, there's always a lag behind what is, let's say, more of a performance rig or a performance CPUs and single cores, to what's more traditional, let's say, less performance, more multi-threading, which we really don't take advantage of, but allows for more RAM capacity. Yeah, Drew, I think it might even be higher than 90 gigabytes. I think the last time I'd heard the number was like 92, 94, so it might be higher than that. So it is very close. And the rate at which it was increasing, if I'm not mistaken, was more than a gig per month. And so it is a very, very real concrete wall that Wax is heading towards. And EOS would likely hit towards that wall as well once there starts to be a significant amount of usage of the chain again. So it's not theoretical for EOS either. It is something that ultimately we would also face in EOS. And so as a priority within the coalition, it was given a lot of weight in order to address prior to it becoming basically being too late. Thank you. Yeah, Aaron says 104 gig. So it's very close. And this is where I think we were talking about this maybe a few firesides ago, or even maybe on a panel that I attended either in Singapore. I think it was in Singapore. It's this idea that EOS in itself and the underlying protocol is actually pushing the limits of what's possible as well on the hardware point of view for what we're trying to do with the chain. And that back and forth between the hardware limitations and software limitations, EOS is really pioneering. Or I guess Antelope is really pioneering, so to speak.
All right, well, that kind of wraps up all the topics that I had on my list. At this point, I'd like to open up the floor to anyone who wants to jump in here, share some updates about your projects, ask some questions, share your career path, what led you to being here today with all of us on the Fireside. Love to hear from you guys. I guess I can share a personal update. I've got fiber internet finally. Moved up from 12 megabytes a second to 1,000 megabytes a second. Although I don't get 1,000 at my computer, I am clocking it at around 250, so that's very exciting for me. I was teased with this. I was told that this would be available 20 months ago when I moved here, but it's finally here.
Before.
Oh man, it's been an exercise of being a stoic and a monk mode and like not letting things I can't control bother me. I did really, really well until last week when I got the email confirmation that it was ready, and then I had my appointment for yesterday. And then ever since then, I was just so tilted every time I would click a link and it would take a few seconds to load. But those days are behind me now. So hopefully no more connection. Yeah.
The fiber stops 3 houses before my house in my
Oh
neighborhood.
no.
And they have no intention of continuing.
But just run a mega long cable to your neighbor.
I know, right?
Yeah, Quebec had this mandate of getting all houses basically connected to high-speed internet by September 2022. They were a bit late on the fiber for some places, including my place. And so they were offering actually subsidized Starlink connection in order to hold us over until we get that fiber. So I learned about that about a month ago. I applied, I got accepted in that for the Starlink, and then just a few days later I got the email saying fiber was coming, so didn't have to get it. But yeah, that's pretty cool from on the part of Quebec. Catherine cheering for fiber in the chat. I think she's also getting hooked up with fiber this week. Very exciting. I just shared a picture of me stacking boxes last night in my basement to get my my internet connection as close as possible to my desk, which is upstairs from this picture. I was pretty excited and motivated. I was able to move up my data speed test from like 160 up to like over 200 with this stack of boxes. Felt like a great win. Shout out to my PS4 that I see the box in there that I never have time to play, but I was very excited to buy it a few years back. Eventually I'll get around to it.
I think if you put another toilet paper roll on top, you'd probably increase your speed by another 25%.
Yo, I'm definitely gonna test that out tonight for sure.
I was thinking about aluminium foil. Maybe you can bundle the signal a little bit.
Whoa, is that actually a legit suggestion?
I've got a really long RJ Cat 6 cable if you just want it, so you can just bring it upstairs.
Yeah, but the girlfriend won't agree with having a mega cable run through the whole house.
Then pass it through the walls. I can help you do that.
Yeah.
That way you don't even see it.
I'd be down for sure.
Yeah, I got a 50-foot cable, and it works well.
Wow, I'm definitely gonna be trying the foil trick and updating you guys next week with a picture.
Goes on your head.
I'll try whatever, man. We'll do a bunch of speed tests. We'll see.
I mean, there's a legit plan in the internet going around for a directional antenna built with a Pringles box. So, yeah.
All right, I'll
try
add it to the
with
list.
foil.
I'll add it to the list.
Hey, I just want to know under what circumstances you use that toilet paper.
That is true. Why is there a toilet paper there?
It's not TP. You guys realize that's the router, right? Or
It's
that's
my
just the
wish.
Wi-Fi extender.
My mesh Wi-Fi.
I thought it was a joke, but at this point, it's kind of clear that you guys actually think it's toilet paper.
Well, the image is kind of fuzzy, but yeah. It does look
You couldn't have just given this to us, Yves.
That is the Wi-Fi extender stacked on top of boxes in order to be closer to the computer that's above it.
I'm incredibly sad that you told me what it actually was.
Sorry for ruining your fun, Nathan. And
This is why we all work in the team.
What kind of toilet paper do you guys have that has wires coming
That
out?
has wires coming out of it, yeah. And what does this have to do with increasing signal strength? I'm not too sure.
We do not speak of such things.
I don't know. If you're looking at that tower, anything is possible. I mean,
I'm glad you guys are enjoying the tower as much as I did building it last night.
You need a bigger tower. Yes, he does. Actually, Steph, if you put toilet paper under it, you'd be up by about 6 inches. And then you'd have the double TP stacked on top of one another.
There you go. I had to concede my tower. I'm going to have to install a tablet, apparently. A little shelf. I mean, girlfriend doesn't approve of this box of towers on her desk, unfortunately. On top of her printer.
There you go. Joe Louis found the link to the toilet paper. The right model number of the toilet paper.
There you go. See?
So when I plug my TV, which is closest to the router, gets 550 megabytes a second. My cell phone, when I lay it on top of this toilet paper, gets about 350. And yeah, my office gets about between 160 and 250, based on the about 100 tests I did last night.
Megabits, right? Because megabytes would be wild.
Yeah. The good stuff. All right, so I don't know if we want to keep talking about my box of towers, or if you guys have other topics, or maybe we wrap it up.
We'll say running Ethernet through the house was worth it.
Nah, my desk has the better view. So I'm gonna eat the loss of internet speed in order to keep the epic view of the forest filled with snow outside. All right. I think we've talked about toilet paper enough for one day. Oh. Some spammers trying to call me. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for joining. Still got over 40 people in here. Love it. Thanks for joining us for the full 2 hours. Thanks to all our great guests, Aaron, Nathan, Yves. We heard from Zach as well, and Winnie, and a few others that I forget right now. But thanks everyone for participating in the show. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere on the internet. And yeah, it's been fun. Until next week, hope you guys have a good evening, good weekend, and I'll see you again next week. Let's go EOS!
Go EOS!
Remember to sign up for your pop tokens. I'll be dropping them for this week and last week in just a few minutes.
Thank you.